What's up everybody, welcome back. In today's video we're gonna finish our lobby menu, we're gonna add a seamless travel, a load screen, and we're also gonna add a level selection. So we got quite a lot to do, but first of all I want to fix the player start in this lobby level so we don't spawn in the middle of the ground. So let's just start right away, and I'm gonna open up my lobby level and add a player start in here. So let me get my viewport up. And I'm simply gonna drop it in, so that should be good to go for now. So I had a few comments on the video about when players leave the lobby, the player names do not get updated. So let's tackle that first, and for that we need to go into our menu game mode, and in here we can actually add an event for when a player leaves the lobby, and that's called event OnLogout. So if you right click and look for OnLogout, and this event will give you the player controller that is logging out. So we can simply cast this player controller to our menu player controller. So we're gonna add a cast to menu player controller, and then we're gonna remove it from all the connected player controllers array. So remove item. And after we removed it, we can simply call our update lobby event to make sure the player names update as well. And that should be all we have to do. So update lobby, and make sure that we set the player names boolean to true over here. And that should be good to go. So we'll test this in a little bit. First let's add our seamless travel as well. And so for seamless travel, you probably want to use that in your game. It's the most efficient way, I think, for using traveling. It will not disconnect the server from the client when you travel between maps. So to use seamless travel, you have to enable something in your game mode, but you cannot use your play in editor mode when you have seamless travel enabled. So that's a bit of a bummer, but because there's slight differences between actually using seamless travel and playing in editor, it's a smart idea to every now and then test the things in an actual standalone game. So to make that a little bit easier, I'm going to add a boolean to my lobby menu, so the host can actually enable seamless travel from the lobby menu in game, so we don't have to bother with it when we're launching the game. So first of all, I'm going to go to my widgets folder, and I'm opening up my lobby menu. And in the designer, I'm going to add some stuff. So I'm going to grab my cheat sheet. And let me see. So first of all, I'm going to drop in a new border over here. And let's just drop it right above the menu buttons. So these borders have an alpha of 0.5. Let's increase it a little bit. So inside the border, I'm gonna drop a horizontal box. No, that should be inside the border, thank you. And then I'm gonna add a checkbox inside the horizontal box, and I'm also gonna add some text in there. So let's make sure the font matches. So I'm just gonna copy and paste it like so. So I'm going to increase the size of the checkbox over here. So I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to search for the size. And there's actually a lot of them, so I'm going to set them all to 24. There we go. And then for the unchecked image, I'm going to make it red. So get rid of the size, unchecked image, the tint should be red. So let's get rid of this. And for the checked image, it's going to be green. There we go. So the text is going to be seamless travel. And then we want to make this border a variable. So I'm going to rename it border seamless travel. Oh, really? And that should be a variable, so let's enable that on the right side. And for the selection checkbox, that should be a variable as well, but it is. So let's rename it checkbox seamless travel. And I think we should be good over here, so I'm gonna set the border to size to content, and that looks fine to me. So let's set it up in our graph, and that shouldn't be too hard. So first of all, let's grab our checkbox over here, and we can add an event for when the check state changes. So I'm sorry. And we are simply gonna get our game mode, and that should be our menu game mode, because we're still in the lobby, so we can cast it to our menu game mode. And then we can simply set the seamless border variable, so set seamless travel, and that's a default variable inside your game mode. And we're simply gonna hook it up to the checked value of the checkbox, and that should be all we have to do in here. Now let's set it up in the event construct as well. So if we are the server, we want to be able to mess with it, but if we are the client, we do not. So we're gonna drag in the border actually, not the checkbox. So the border for the seamless travel, and we're just gonna set the visibility to hidden. So the clients can't see it and they can't do anything with it. And for the host, we're going to make sure that the value actually matches the setting in the game mode. So we're going to get our game mode, cast it to our menu game mode. And let's get the setting for seamless travel. And then we're also going to get our checkbox in here and set the checked state. So set is checked. At checked state, grab the lower one, and then we can simply plug in our boolean, so we know the value matches. So that should be good to go. Now to actually use seamless travel, we need to create a travel map. So if we go into our maps folder, I'm just going to create it in the menu folder. Let's save all of this, and then I'm going to create a new level. And that can just be an empty level. There doesn't need to be anything in here. So let me save the current level as, and this is going to be my travel map. And we need to go into our project settings then, and go into the maps and modes section. And over here, let me see. If we expand this over here, we have the transition map, and over there you actually need to enter your travel map for seamless traveling. So look for the travel map and fill it in at the transition map over here. That should be good to go. Now the boolean that we actually enable and disable is a setting in the game mode, like I mentioned. So if you open the game mode, go to the class defaults, then on the right side over here, there should be a boolean for it, so let's search. Oh, this is the controller, I'm sorry. So the game mode. So over here, use seamless travel. So because we have the boolean in our lobby menu, we do not need to worry about setting it before we launch the game right now. So that's what we did over there. So I think we should be able to test this. So if we go into our pie right now, and we have the wrong map open, so let's go into our main menu and launch the game. So let me see if we are going to host. Now we have our seamless travel over here. So if I would enable this, I won't be able to launch the game in the play in editor mode like I'm doing now. So right now I need to make sure it's disabled. And if you want to actually test the seamless travel, you need to launch a standalone game. But first let's double check if the player names update if the client leaves the lobby. So let's join the session. And we have 2 blunts in here, and now I'm gonna leave it. And we also got rid of the player name over here, so that seems to be working. So if we want to test our seamless travel, we actually need to launch a standalone game over here. And then you are immediately going to notice a small difference when we launch the game. So let's test how that goes. Let's go with a multiplayer, host game. And now I need to look for my other window over here. So let's change the name. And join our lobby. So let's enable the seamless travel, start the game. And as you notice, the game does launch, but we have our lobby menu still on the screen. And that's a difference between launching in play in editor mode, because if we would launch in editor, that would not happen. So every now and then you might want to test the differences between, and you might want to do some small fixes. So in this case, to fix the widget still on the screen, we're simply going to open our shooter PlayerController. And in begin play over here, we actually enable the input for the game mode and remove the mouse cursor from the screen. So we're simply going to remove all widgets that are on our screen. And that should fix our issue. So that should be good to go. And after setting all that up, let's add a load screen to our lobby menu as well. So let's create a simple load screen for when we are loading into the level. I grabbed one of the images from the Lyra project since we're using the characters, and I'm simply going to show that on the load screen. So let's go to the widgets folder, and I'm going to duplicate my main menu so I can use the title bar again. It's not much, but it saves a few seconds. So let's get rid of the stuff we don't need. So that's the vertical box with the buttons and the player name input. Now let me change the title over here, so loading. Then first of all, I'm gonna grab a border and just drop it right on top of the canvas panel, but I want to make sure that it's above the border from the title menu, so drag it above there. And then let's make it full screen, so I'm gonna anchor it to the center, zero it out, 1920 by 1080, and then 0.5 for the alignment. So I'm gonna make this border black. So we have a black load screen, and on top of here I'm gonna drag an image, but I'm gonna drop it on top of the canvas panel. And for the image I'm gonna use the load screen image from the Lyra project. So simply select it in my content browser, and then over here on the right side I can click the little arrow. So we are gonna set it to size to content and then anchor it to the center, zero it out, and the alignment should be 0.5. So there we go. And now to make things a tiny little bit more interesting, I'm gonna add a throbber, so something is moving. So search for throbber, and we can simply drag it on the canvas panel as well. And with the throbber aligned, let's align it to the center. And let's increase it a little bit. And we need to move it down, so that's a bit much, something like this. And then we can define the number of pieces over here, so I'm gonna increase it a little bit so it looks a little bit more interesting. And this is going to be my load screen for now. So we need to go into the graph, and we can simply delete everything in here. We don't need a graph, and then we should be able to compile it. And that's good to go. Now to show the load screen, we actually need to create some events in our menu controller. So let's go to the framework folder and open our menu controller. And we're going to do the same thing as we did for the HUD basically. So we're going to duplicate the show lobby menu, for the lobby menu. So duplicate the event, show load screen. But first we're going to remove all widgets from the screen, because if we have the load screen, we probably don't want any other widgets on the screen. And then we can change the lobby menu references over here to the new load screen. So make sure create widget, and that's going to be the load screen. Promote to variable, widget blueprint load screen, and plug them back into the add-on viewport and to the isValid node. And with this event in place, we can go to the event graph, or with the function in place. And in here we can create an event, and the event is going to be called create load screen. So custom event, create load screen. And this is a replicated event once again, so that's replicated from the server to the owning client. So the server can tell the clients from the game mode they should have their load screens displayed. So from here we can simply call our UI show load screen. And as long as the server calls this, we should be good to go. So if we go into our lobby menu over here, and when we launch the game, that's actually something the server does. So we know we are dealing with the server over here. So we are gonna add a for each loop. Let me grab my cheat sheet. Yeah, we can simply add a for each loop in between here. So let's disconnect this, add a for each loop, and then for each of the connected player controllers, and we already grabbed that array. We are simply gonna create the load screen, plug it into the for each loop, and then when the loop is completed, we're gonna travel to the new map. So that should fix the load screen. And let's test this at the end of the video. Let's continue by adding our level selection. To be able to test our level selection, we need a second map. So let's do that first. I'm simply going to open up the map that we already have, and I'm going to save it as map number 2. And then let's make a few changes so we can actually see some differences. I saved it in the wrong folder, so I'm not sure if that's going to be an issue if I move it when it's opened. So let me see if this is working. There we go. So the first map, I'm gonna simply make it grasslands. So I have the starter content in here. I'm gonna go to the materials folder, grab the grass, and simply make it green. Oh, really? And for the second map, I'm gonna make it more desert-like. So it's going to be a ground texture that's in the starter content. So let me save this one. And then materials, and do something like the gravel maybe, and assign it to this level. So now I'm simply going to make 2 screenshots of this level, and I'm going to resize them to about 500 by 250 pixels, and then I'm going to import those into Unreal so we can show them in our load menu. And once that's done, I'm gonna get back to you guys so you can do the same and you actually have an image to show with your level selection. So I have imported my 2 awesome images that we're gonna use later. Now let's set up the level selection. So I'm gonna go into the maps folder, and first let's create a structure. So we're going to use a struct and a data table to add levels to the level selection. So this is going to be my struct level info. Open it up, and in here we're going to add 3 variables. The first one is the display name of the map. So display name. And that's actually a text variable, not a name. Then we're going to enter this travel string. And that is a string. So change it. And the last one is the preview image. So that's the images that we just imported. And that's going to be a texture 2D object reference. So texture 2D object reference, and that should be good to go. Then with the struct done, we can right click, go to miscellaneous, and add a data table over here. And then you need to select a structure, and we're going to select our level info structure that we just created. Click OK, and this is our level info table. And in here we can add levels that we want to be able to select. So we're simply going to add a row in here, and the first row name is going to be map 01. And then the display name is going to be something like tundra, maybe, because it's grassy and green. And the travel string is going to be map 01. And then the preview image is going to be our imported image. And we can do the same thing for the other level that we created. So add another row in here, map 02. And let's call this desert. And the travel string is map 02. So that's simply the name of the actual map that we're using to travel to the map. And then the image to display. And that should be good. So if you want to add more levels, you can simply add them in the data table and they will show up in the lobby menu later. So let's set it up in the widget for the lobby menu. And for this, I'm going to grab my cheat sheet again. So we're going to add a border in here. Let's drag it on top of our canvas panel. And I'm going to anchor it to the top right of the screen. Let's just increase it a little bit for now, that doesn't really matter. And let's make sure that it matches with the rest of the layout, so alpha 0.5. Let me see, inside the border we're going to drag a vertical box, so that's going to be a panel vertical box. And for the next one we are going to add a border inside the vertical box, and on top of the border we're going to add some text. So this is going to be the name of the level that we have selected. So let's change the name over here, text selected map name. And this needs to be a variable, so enable it on the top right over here. And let's make sure that our font matches up, but let's also make the border a bit darker so we can actually see the text. So there we go. Now I'm going to copy the font from over here. So copy and paste it. And I think that should be good to go for the border. So then we're going to add an image and we're going to drag it on top of the vertical box over here. So I'm going to select the image, and I made my preview images 500 by 250. So I'm going to enter the size over here. And I'm also going to make sure that the image is a variable, so that's good. And then let's make sure we rename it. So image preview image. And that's the little image for the map. And then we're going to add a scroll box. And we also need to add it to the vertical box in here. And the scroll box we're going to use to populate with our levels. And we need to create a new widget for that actually. So for now let's just rename the scroll box. So that's going to be scroll box all level names. And that should be a variable. And then we are done for now with the widget. So let's compile and save it. And let's create the actual row widget that we're going to use for the level names. So we're going to do something similar that we did with the server rows, and we're simply going to make a small widget that we're going to populate the scroll box with. So if we create a new user interface widget blueprint and select the user widget, so that's the widget blueprint level row info, and let's open it up. So in here let's add ourselves a canvas panel, and then on top of that we need a button. So the entire row is going to be a button. And let me see, the size I used was 480 by 35. So I'm gonna resize it 480 by 35. And let's make sure that my button is black. So I'm gonna make it 0.7, and then when it's hovered it's going to be darker, so 0 and then 1, and when it's pressed it's going to be lighter, so 0.3. So on top of the button we need to add some text, and that should be pretty much all. So we are going to make the text a variable. Let's rename it to text map name and make it a variable on the top right over here. So to make sure we get the correct font, I'm simply going to open up one of the other menus and copy it. So I need to copy it from here. There we go. And let's align this to the left side. And that's already done, but we need to make sure it's set to fill, so it's actually using the entire box. And now this should be good to go. So if we go into the graph, we can use our event construct, but we need to create a few variables. So first we're going to enter the name for the map. So create a new variable, and that's our map display name. And that's a text variable. Then we also need the table row name for the map. So table row name, and that's a name variable. And then we need a reference to our lobby menu. So that's our widget blueprint lobby menu. And that's a lobby menu. So set it over here. And all three of these need to be exposed on spawn. So you need to select them and then set the instance editable and also expose on spawn, and do that for all three of them. And with that out of the way, we're gonna drag in our text map name, and on event construct we're gonna set it. So set text, and we can simply set it to the variable from the display name over here. So plug it in, and that should be good to go. So when we create the widget, we are going to populate the variables, so then this should work. Now let's go back into the lobby menu and make sure that we actually use these server row widgets. Let's open up the lobby menu and continue the setup for the level selection. So let's go to event construct over here, and let's create two new variables first. So the first one is going to be my selected level string. Selected level string, and that's a string. So make sure you change it. And we also need an array of all the level info rows. So all level info rows, and those are the level info row widgets that we just created, and that's going to be an array. So make sure you change it. First of all, we're going to drag in the all level info rows, and we're going to clear the array. So make sure you connect this up to the server branch over here. So server is true. Then we need to drag in our scroll box for the level names. So drag it in, and we're going to clear all the children. So we're going to make sure that we start with an empty scroll box. Now we're going to get all of the levels that we want to add to the game. So we're going to get the table rows. And let me see, get all data table row names. That's the one you want to get. And in here, we're going to enter the level info data table that we created. And this is going to output all the row names. So if we go back over here, this is going to output map 01 and map 02. And with those row names, we can retrieve all the information in the data table. So we have an array of row names. So we're going to add a for each loop in here. And for each of these row names, we're going to spawn a level info row. So we're going to create a widget, and that's our level info row. Plug this in here. No, let's disconnect it. Let's first get the data table info. So get table row. And from here, we're going to select the level info table again, but we're going to use the name from the array. So we actually retrieve some information. break the struct over here that returns, and we can use the information to plug into our server row. So the preview image doesn't need to be connected, by the way. We only need to connect the display name over here, and we need to make sure that we connect the table row name from the array. And the lobby menu is a reference to our self, so we can simply look for self and then plug this in over here. Now that we created the widget, we also need to connect our player controller, by the way. So get player controller, make sure you don't forget. So now that we created the widget, we're going to add it to the array that we created in the beginning. So the level info rows, drag it in here, add and plug it in. And after that we want to add it to the actual scroll box. So also drag in the scroll box for all the level names and add a child. And simply connect up the created widget again. And that should be good to go. And now we need to make sure that when the all of the maps are loaded, the server is going to select the first level in the list. So we need to add a few new events for that as well. Let me see. First, let's create an event to update the level selection. So let's create a custom event. Update level selection. And the input is going to be a level row name. So it has one input, and that's a name. And we are going to get the data table row again. So get data table row and plug in the level row name. Make sure you select the level info table. So break the struct that returns, and we can set the stuff in the designer. So we can drag in the text for our selected level, text selected map name, and we can set the text. And simply set it to the value that returns from the data table. And we can do the same thing with the image. So drag in the image preview image. And we're gonna set the brush from a texture. So set brush from texture. And you can plug in the texture from the data table again. And for the travel string, we are simply gonna store it in a variable. So connect it up as well. And for the travel string, we need to make sure that we connect it in the start game event. So go to the start game over here, the button main menu, not main menu, start game, this one. So in the end we have the travel to map event, and we want to plug in the selected level string over here in the map name. So we actually load in the correct level. So that should be most of the widget stuff. Let's create some more stuff in the menu controller and game mode. First of all, let's add an event to the menu controller so the clients can update the level selection if the server changes it. So let's create a new custom event, and it's going to be update level selection. So again, this is replicated from the server to the owning client. So make sure replicated, run on owning client. This needs one input, and that's the level row name. And that's a name variable. So let's drag in a reference to our lobby menu, and let's double check that it's valid. And if it's valid, we can simply call our update level selection function that we just created. And we can plug in the row name. And that should be all we need to do in here. Now, if we scroll up a little bit over here, oh, we can do that yet. We're gonna get back to this in a little bit, never mind. So let's go to the menu controller and make sure that we add this event when the server updates the lobby. So open up our menu game mode, and in here we have an event called update lobby, and we're going to add it to this event. So let's add a boolean for the level selection first. So if we want to update level selection, we need to enable this boolean. And we need to make sure that we connect this false pin to the execution of the second for each loop over here. So if we do not update the player names, we maybe still want to update the level selection. So connect this one up as well. Then after the update player names inside the for each loop here, I'm going to add a second branch. And make sure that I connect the false pin of the first branch as well. So we have no loose ends in here. So this needs to be connected to the start of the event, to the level selection boolean. And then all we need to do in here is call our update level selection event for the player controller. So let's drag this over here and call update level selection. And plug this in here. And all we need now is the selected level row name. And let me double check where we got that from. We can simply add a variable for that, and we're gonna set it later from the lobby menu. So let's add the selected level name. Selected level name. And that's a name variable. And we can plug it in over here. And that should be good to go to update the client lobbies. So from here the server can tell the client to update their lobbies. Now if we go back into our lobby menu, now let's first go back into the menu controller, because I almost forgot. Over here we have the update lobby event when a new player enters the lobby. And we need to make sure that for that player it also displays the correct level selection. So you need to enable the level selection boolean in here. Do not forget. So now we can go back into our lobby menu. And in here we're going to create a new event for when a server selects the level. So let me open up the lobby menu, go to the graph and create a custom event. And let's call it server select level. So this needs a row name again as an input. So let's give it the level row name as a name variable. And then we need to get our game mode. So right click, get game mode, and cast it to our menu game mode. And then we can set our selected level string. So the name, sorry. So that's the variable that we just created a few minutes ago, or moments ago actually. Selected level name, and we can plug that in over here. And after that this server can simply call the update lobby event. So drag off the game mode again, call update lobby, and this time we only want to update the level selection, so you can leave the player names false and only set level selection to true. And now there's one small thing we need to do, and let's go into the level info row over here. And this entire widget was a button, so we need to create an onClicked event for this. So select the button and create an onClicked event. And that's going to be really simple. We're going to drag in the reference to our lobby menu and simply call our server select level event. And we can plug in the row name that's a variable on this widget. So that should update the selection for everybody, I hope. I tend to forget a few things here and there, but let's keep our fingers crossed and let's see if this is working. So I'm just gonna launch the editor. That should be fine. And it crashed on me. Awesome. So I'm gonna load it back in. Give me a sec. Okay, so I'm back. There doesn't really seem to be anything wrong. It's just an Unreal crash. So let's see what happens if we go into our lobby menu. So we do have our level selection, but it's not updated, and I know why. So let's fix that first. Let's go into the widgets, into our lobby menu, and we need to add something to our construct event. So let's go into the graph. And let me see, over here we update the scroll box with all the available levels, and when the for each loop is done, we want to call the server select level event. So let's drag off here and call server select level. And we're just going to set it to the first level in the row. So we're going to drag off the array over here and get the first index. So that's index 0 and plug it into the level row name. So that should fix the issue. And let's see if that's working. So multiplayer, host game. And right now we have the level in place here. And I can actually select both of them. So that seems to be working. Now let's see if the client also sees the correct information. So let's search for the game. And let's join the session. And we have our Tundra map over here, so that's kind of good. So we're going to fix the size of the border in a little bit. That's no biggie. Now let's see what happens if the server is changing levels. So let me see. So that's actually updating as well. So it looks like that's working. Now if we leave seamless travel off, we can see if we actually load in a different map. So let's start the game and see what happens. And we should also able to test our load screen. So that's also working. And we're actually loading into our desert map. So I think pretty much everything is working. So to fix the border being a little bit out of shape for the clients, we can simply go into the event construct over here for the lobby menu. And if we are a client, we are going to delete the scroll box for the level names, because a client can select the level, so it doesn't need to be here. So let's drag in the scroll box all level names and remove from parent. And plug it in here. And now the scroll box should be nicely sized for the clients as well. So let's quickly test it, and then I think we can call it a day. So let's set this to desert and see if that's actually updated as well. So join the session, and that's working. And the border size is actually not working, but I think I know why. So I forgot to enable size to fit over here. So if you set it to size to content, then it will actually adjust to the size. And if we delete the scroll box for the clients, then it will match again. So I'm not going to bother testing. I know this works. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like. If you have questions or just want to talk about some game dev stuff, you're welcome to join the Game Dev Raw Discord. The link's in the description. So again, thanks for watching. Talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.